Sometimes it is literally every day. Okay, well, fucking, there's Marxist Leninists that have cringe ass points of view too. Feel me? Okay, trigger warning. Ted Cruz. I don't want to watch Ted Cruz mansplaining. Okay, let's watch Tucker Carlson. I was gonna talk about this already. We were gonna talk about CRT and Tucker Carlson's like incredible POV on critical race theory. He got very upset that General Milley said something along the lines of like, don't accuse me of being woke because I read Lenin. I read the works of Lenin and Mao. That doesn't mean I'm a gosh darn communist. Just like, I guess, reading CRT or critical race theory or things that Republicans consider to be critical race theory will not make me a fucking woke. So, Ben Shabibo was very upset at it too. Here, let's point out that like here was the General Mark Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, just now on critical race theory, talking about wokeness. Ben Shapiro says, and yet Marx and Lenin aren't on Milley's recommended reading list because the military isn't generally in the business of presenting despicable anti-American views to its members worthy of consideration. I love this take, like, that Marx and Lenin are despicable anti-American views. Says Ben Shapiro, I wonder. Actually, you know what? I am going to respond to this. I love that Karl Marx hated America when he literally wrote fawning letters to none other than Abraham fucking Lincoln. Kind of a strange take from Shabibo here. Marx literally thought America was ripe for revolution. Like, he was a bit of an Ameriboo and loved Abraham Lincoln and sent him letters. So it's kind of cool that he's like, he's taking this like completely ahistorical approach. I'm gonna tweet. I'm gonna fucking reply to it. He said, yeah, famous anti-American Karl Marx who literally wrote fawning letters to Abe Lincoln. Dumbass. They love talking about how, like, Abe Lincoln is a Republican. Abe Lincoln is a Republican, but, you know. Here you go. Here, I linked it. There you go, boys. Here, get it fired up for you, okay? Get that fucking ratio fired up for you. We are going to go into the critical race theory part of the broadcast once again. Totally made up concept, manufactured outrage, incredibly successful. Republicans, once again, doing a remarkable job. I work to support an education technology company, and if I get one more call about CRT from a parent, I'm going to lose it. It's so funny that, like, they just manufacture this fucking drama and then everybody talks about it. So race theory, fake science, global warming, real science? What? Race theory? Oh, what do you mean by that? Do we have a race realist in the chat? God damn, boys, what the fuck? We can't even do a 10-second ratio like we used to. We've lost it. I think my man thought critical race theory is like phrenology or something. Also, like, it's not even a hard science if that's what you think it is. Like, boom. Okay. All right, let's now go to Tucker Carlson going absolutely fucking bananas over the
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight. Want to hear an amazing story?
he's just gonna go buck wild. Okay, trigger warning. Tucker Carlson going buck wild, just straight the fuck up, just wasp nationalism, baby. A little bit of white genocide rhetoric in here. I mean, this is as I mean, let's just watch.
The benefit of being both true and illuminating. Here it is. In 1851, a man called Samuel Cartwright came up with a fairly sophisticated scientific explanation for why so many slaves were running away from plantations in the American South. These fugitive slaves, Cartwright explained, were suffering from a medical disorder. It was called drapetomania. It was a syndrome characterized by an uncontrollable or insane impulsion to wander. So that was the problem. It wasn't they disliked being enslaved or yearned for freedom and basic humanity. No. The problem, according to Samuel Cartwright, was that black people as a group were inherently defective. They were drapetomaniacs. They were always running away. That's what he said.
Please don't tell me he's gonna compare this like phrenology laden psychotic race realist race scientist to the critical race theory. Oh my fucking lord. Oh yes, he is gonna do that. Obviously, of course.
107 years later, it is embarrassing to repeat something this stupid out loud. It's so obviously insane. But here's what you should know. Drapetomania was taken very seriously at the time, and so was Samuel Cartwright. Cartwright was not a fringe character at all. He was a nationally prominent physician, a former high-ranking Army officer from Fairfax, Virginia. He went to Penn Medical School. Samuel Cartwright was a credentialed man of science who commanded...
Okay, I have to point out the inherent irony here because I know where he's going to. What he's going to say is like, this is just the same as white rage. Categorizing whiteness as a disease is inappropriate and unfortunate. We are repeating the mistakes of the past. Now, what is remarkable here is that in an effort to devalue, like, I don't know, the analysis of like white supremacist undertones in American history, he's literally describing how white supremacy could be so fucking pervasive that someone who went to medical school could be a prominent white supremacist, which is kind of something that people should learn about, Tucker. That's the point. Okay, let's keep going.
The respect of the country. 50 years after the Civil War, one of this nation's leading medical dictionaries continued to maintain an entry for drapetomania. So in retrospect, of course, we would call Samuel Cartwright a bigot, which he undoubtedly was. But he was also more than that. Cartwright was a practitioner of something called scientific racism. Scientific racism is deeper than simple prejudice. It is the use of science to justify the dominance of one group over another group. Scientific racism has a history as long as science, simply because the impulse to dominate is inherent to human nature. So it's not really about color, though it's called racism. Instead, it's about power. Martin Luther King wrote eloquently about this. So did Dr. Seuss, by the way. You might want to take a look at what they wrote, assuming you can still buy their books. The point is, scientific racism never actually went away.
What?
It's still with us. No one talks about drapetomania anymore. Instead, our medical...
Is he saying that like there's race realism happening in medical schools that like literally believe that whiteness is like a genetic condition? Oh my fucking God, dude. That's great. In an effort to devalue education that revolves around teaching people systemic racism, he gave a clear-cut example of how pervasive white supremacy was in American history, that it literally seeped into like the medical profession, and the dominant theory at the time was race realist and eugenicist in nature, only to then turn around and be like, this is exactly like teaching people systemic racism and its impact in contemporary American society. That's fucking awesome, dude.
Medical professionals and law professors and military leaders and politicians and cable news hosts have identified a new disorder they claim explains everything bad. It's called whiteness. In the universities, it has become an article of faith.
There is no medical disorder. Like, there is no whiteness as a medical... Oh, shit.
That were it not for the indelible stain of whiteness, America could be a utopia. Only whiteness stands in the way. That's why we must abolish it. As Harvard Magazine put it, abolish the white race. Only then can we be happy. Lots of people seem to believe this. They're not all.
Okay. Harvard Magazine abolished the white race. I just like, he's just like dropping all this shit. I got to go into it and see what he's referencing here. What? Oh, Noel Ignatieff, scholar who called for abolishing whiteness, dies at age 78. He wrote a book in 1995 called How the Irish Became White. And his concept was, he worked around race and class and is called to abolish whiteness. And I guess, like, I don't know enough about this theory, but judging by like a quick cursory glance on what this is, seems like he means the concept of whiteness is built around exclusion, which unironically is kind of what, people like Tucker Carlson try to explain. Or I guess he's talking about, yeah, when race becomes black and white, writers confront their personal histories. In the interest of survival, Afro-Americans have always studied whiteness. There's a long tradition among them that the white race is a particular sort of social formation. Yeah, whiteness as a concept. Okay, whiteness as a concept is a pure fabrication. White people have grown in size and it's become more over-encompassing. I'm white, depending on who you're talking to. I'm white in America, certainly not considered white in a place like Germany because of my Turkish background. But even then, once people recognize that I'm a Muslim, Turkish person, then all of a sudden I'm no longer white. Do you understand? Benny Franks did not consider Italians to be white. He did not even consider Germans to be white. He considered them to be swarthy at the time. Okay? The Irish were not considered white. The Polish were not considered white. Slavs were never considered white. Ironic that so many Poles are fucking neo-Nazis now, but, you know, that's besides the point. Let's not get into that. Whiteness as a concept is ever expanding. All right? The only people that will never be white, no matter what, are black people. Partially because whiteness as a concept comes from the exclusion of blackness, or how far removed you are from being black, as evidenced by the one drop rule, as evidenced by the fact that we don't think Obama is a white person. We think Obama is a black person, even though he's half black. So, whenever people have theorized about whiteness or race as a social construct, this is precisely what they're talking about. When they say abolish whiteness, this is what they're talking about. It doesn't mean murder white people, okay? But this is precisely what white nationalists believe. White nationalists believe in that outdated form of racial purity, which is precisely why they say white genocide is occurring. Because they think that miscegenation causes the eradication of the white race. Think about that for a second. White genocide is caused by non-white people having consensual sex with white people. And white people, as a concept, has grown throughout time too. So it's like people that you would never consider white are now considered white. This is why I make fun of white genocide all the time on the show, but most people don't realize it and most people don't understand it. Like, it's not a real concept. It's like a unicorn. It's a made-up idea. Like the Easter Bunny. Okay? Because if you believe that like people being in like loving marriages or having loving relationships with one another and having children together is eradicating your race in a systemic and targeted capacity similar to a genocide, then that's not a real genocide. You're just a fucking psychopathic racist. And Tucker Carlson is one. So, you know, don't get caught up in the spicy language when people talk about abolishing the white race. They're simply referencing whiteness as a concept that is ever expanding.
All bad people, just as not everyone who believed in Samuel Cartwright in the 1850s was evil. Some people are just gullible. They're looking for meaning in their lives. If you hand them a unified theory of everything, some percentage of them are going to buy it wholesale. There were nice people at Jonestown in Guyana. They just didn't know any better. It's their leaders that you wonder about. They do know better, or they should. And when they talk about this new iteration of scientific racism...
Yeah, I love that Tucker Carlson is like criticizing scientific racism when, you know, he had Charles Murray on his show.
Political ambitions. Let's say that again for emphasis because it is the secret to the entire immigration debate. Casting ballots.
Or he talked about Charles Murray, I guess. He didn't have Charles Murray on.
He's serving as a people.
He used Charles Murray. Did he have Charles Murray on? Or oh no. Oh, here it is.
So that if you have, well, I have the data in the book. Essentially, you have registered nurses. And we have data on fairly large numbers of registered nurses, black and white. And the difference in mean IQ between the two of those is a dozen IQ points, which is a lot. It means you have a whole lot of extremely able.
Wow, that's really crazy that Tucker Carlson doesn't seem to have a problem with race realism and race science here, considering Charles Murray is literally one of the fathers of like modern race realism with his Bell theory or bell curve a theory about you know, the IQ mean amongst like different races. And he is literally advocating for it here on his show. So that's kind of cool that Tucker Carlson doesn't seem to have a problem with race science here. 8 facts? Facts? Really? So you're so fucking stupid that you would assume that like just because someone is saying that like here are some data points that you would believe in like race science too, like phrenology and skull measurements? Is that what you're gonna say? Like, it's facts, bro. What a self-report. What an incredible self-report right there.
Black nurses. You have some incompetent white nurses, but it does mean you have a difference in job performance. And that's eventually going to be reflected in income as well. It's going to be reflected in the nature of their careers and the nature of how they end up and so forth. Same thing goes with virtually all kinds of jobs. The same thing goes for the kinds of jobs people end up in, so that you have entry into certain...
Abolish white race is such terrible optics, though. Yeah, dude. Yeah, well, that's why it's in fucking Harvard, okay? It's in like it's in academic papers talking about social sciences and race as a construct, and not in fucking Twitch chat, okay? Like, there's a little bit more than like saying abolish whiteness. Especially when you're talking about it as like a fucking social construct. God damn, this like optic shit is understandable in certain ways. It's understandable in certain ways, but it's so fucking stupid when you have that argument about like academia. Sorry, Sweaty. I really want you to, you know, think about the optics so that like one day some psychopathic reactionary could use this against you. Like, I say this when it comes to certain lectures. Like, the optics argument in certain lectures makes sense. Okay? Like, if you're doing a lecture, then the lecture, if you're doing a lecture in West Point, then that's absolutely going to be weaponized against you. So in certain instances, optics can matter. Ultimately, it doesn't matter. What matters is the source material. But when it comes to like academic papers and shit, like, yeah, the optics argument is so stupid.
Certain kinds of occupations is limited.
Especially if you are a free speech defender, which most of these people are. It's like, you know, considering your framework from how the opposition will bastardize it and, I don't know, devalue your own point of view or your own theoretical framework is like literally unironically anti-free speech in that way.
Because the cognitive demands of those occupations mean that a whole lot of more white people qualify than black people, and even a higher.
If you want people to join your cause, it has to be
qualify.
easy to understand and hard to misunderstand. Yeah, except we're not talking about propagandists here. We're talking about people who are studying the issue and are completely lost in the sauce of their own, like, in their own circles. Like, you're talking about academic papers on social issues and social sciences. So remember, that person that's posting that is not like, yeah, I'm doing this because I want it to be propagandized in the future. Okay?
Than white people. These are all differences which are driven not by irrational racism. They are driven by day-to-day realities of job performance and the responses of supervisors to job performances. And
this part of Tucker's show isn't allowed on TV, by the way. It's the bonus web show they do on the Fox News app /Slight. They occasionally use highlights during his main show, but they're never long.
The demands of the market. I'm not saying all of it, by the way. In all of this, you know, in talking about these things, is Murray saying that racism is no longer a factor in American life? No. Racism is a factor in American life. I'm saying that you can't understand the size of the factor.
Remember when fucking Sam Harris had this guy on and like went out to bat for him? That was pretty cool. Big time liberal, by the way. I love the big time liberal Sam Harris, like unironically having Charles Murray on his show and then defending that decision.
It is without understanding the proportion of the differences that are reasonable and logical and predictable.
Immediate self-report for anyone is just like taking IQ as a serious metric for, like taking IQ as a serious metric for anything. Okay? Double self-report if you tie IQ to genetics, which he does regularly. This is his bread and butter. Okay? Anyway. Believe me, I'm taking a Facebook IQ. This is I got 130. I'm actually really smart. Oh, for sure. You don't think Asian people are smarter than white people? You can acknowledge differences between races and still believe in equality? What? No, I don't believe Asian people are smarter than white people, you fucking moron. What? Dude, that's so funny. Dude, no, that's not a real thing, okay? That unironically also, look. I'm gonna be as nice as possible. I'm gonna be as charitable as possible to that person who just dropped that notion in here. Okay? And assume that he was just like misguided and that's why he's saying this. Okay? But no, I don't think that there is one race of people that's smarter than another race of people, even on average. And it certainly it has nothing to do with race. If IQ was a well-defining metric and you could absolutely consider it, if you absolutely could like look at genes then no such studies would exist on IQ tests done on people in India over the course of like a drought season and subsequent famine versus like non-drought and better material conditions on the same exact people, where IQ points differentiate by like all the way up to 12%. It's or not 12%, by 12 points. It is ridiculous. It's completely reliant. Not only is it a silly metric for success, and I say this as someone who's dumb as fuck from an IQ point of view, I guess. Not that I know what my IQ is. I've never taken one of these tests. I just assume it's low. It's not a valid measure for it's not an accurate measure for anything. But beyond that, it's certainly idiotic to tie it back to genetics when so many environmental factors stand in the way. Just bitter about low IQ? Yeah, dude, I'm so bitter. My life is so dog shit. It's terrible, dude. Anyway. IQ stands for assault rifle. It's true. All right. So yeah, Tucker hates race realism unless he's like literally having the father of like contemporary race realism on his other show.
Racism. When they talk about whiteness, they sound very much like old-fashioned bigots. Take this guy, for example. His name is Eric Michael Dyson. He's a tenured professor at some stupid college or other. He lives in a rich, almost exclusively white neighborhood. He goes on television a lot. Watch him as he talks about race and ask yourself honestly.
I love when people say this, when it's like, I can't believe this black person is like living in an nearly exclusively white neighborhood. It's like, yeah, that's kind of the point, dude. Like, how is that any different than being like, why aren't there that many black billionaires? Why aren't there that many successful black people? Let's not examine the socioeconomic conditions that we subjected black people to on the virtue of their race, and instead just keep asking that question and let it hang there, as though there's something inherently like wrong or bad about blackness, and that there are some intrinsic qualities that we simply cannot say because it's just a scary truth that no one wants you to discuss. No, it's just incorrect. It's literally external factors, you fucking moron. I wonder why there aren't that many black people in the probably nice neighborhood that he lives in. Let's think. Let's think for a moment. But no, because the entire purpose of this fucking broadcast from Tucker Carlson is to make you not think about those reasons, okay? That's the point. There are either internal or external reasons for why black people are in these demonstrate like a larger percentage of poor people in American statistics. Okay, like there's a reason. There has to be a reason. It's either intrinsic or extrinsic. Which are the factors? If you believe that it's external, okay, if you believe that there are outside factors, you believe in systemic racism. You believe in the structural inequality that black people were subjected to. Okay? If you believe in the intrinsic internal factors, then you're fucking racist. It's that simple. You believe that like they have a genetic predisposition to poverty. It's that simple. It's not that hard. Just like at the top of the hour, there's a fucking 6-second ad break, and that's not that hard either. You know this. It's coming. You throw your tomatoes. But fear not, if you'd like to no longer see the ads at the top of the hour, every hour, then you can do something. That something you can do is subscribe. You can subscribe for $5, or you can subscribe for free with a Twitch Prime. by connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account. Now, also, you can use an ad blocker, or you can use a VPN, but there are ways. You can also admit that that was a solid-ass segue, baby. Come on. It's fine. No, but like I said already, here's the ad, by the way. That stupid college is Vanderbilt, by the way. He got his PhD from Princeton, but mentioning his real credentials isn't as helpful to Tucker, just as delegitimizing academia. Yeah. So what I'm trying to point out here is that like this concept of racial inequality is a lot more simple than the way that like people like Tucker Carlson try to make it out to be. Obviously, there's more nuance to it. There's more context to it, and there's you can have that conversation in academia, as many do, right? And then Tucker will then bastardize that stuff and make it seem like people are just trying to generate white. They're just trying to make white people out to be the villains or whatever, like all white people, unconditionally. So, I guess what I am trying to say is it's a lot more simple. You can simplify it. Either there are external factors or internal factors. If you believe that if you believe that like black people are in the conditions that they're in for internal reasons, then you believe that they are genetically predisposed to violence or to be in poverty conditions, to be in lower socioeconomic conditions. If you believe in external factors, then you understand that it's systemic racism that has put them in said conditions and have made it exceptionally difficult to get out of those conditions.
If he sounds any different at all from, say, Bull Connor or David Duke, he doesn't. Only the colors have changed. Here he is.
And speaking about, the maggots, I'm sorry, the MAGA, that is so corrosive in this, political moment. And we have.
Tucker Carlson is upset that Eric Dyson, who is who has gotten way shittier throughout the years and became like such a fucking annoying lib throughout the years. Tucker Carlson getting mad at that guy, calling MAGA people maggots, is of course hilarious considering Tucker has routinely considered immigrants coming into this country, economic migrants and refugees in general and asylum seekers in general, to be dirty, and has done propaganda around that like regularly. But
stood by to see mediocre, mealy-mouthed, snowflake white men who are incapable of taking critique, who are willing to dole out infamous repudiations of the humanity of the other, and yet they call us snowflakes, and they are the biggest flakes of snow to hit the earth. They are incapable of criticism. They are incapable of tolerating difference. They're scared of, oh my God, critical race theory is going to kill your mother. And they don't even know. They're not critical. They have no race, and they don't understand theory.
White men, they're the problem. You hear that so often.
I mean, he's actually saying that conservative men across the board are fragile as fuck. And there is truth to that, considering you're behaving that way right now. I mean, it's hard not to get called out like this and then, behave. It's hard to get called out like this and then behave in a reasonable manner. Like, he just fucking nailed Tucker Carlson so hard that, of course, like, he is going to then further prove Eric Dyson's point here. So let's continue.
That you don't pause to consider what a change this is. It used to be only a few years ago that the one thing you couldn't do in America was attack people in public on the basis of their race. I don't like that group because of their skin color. Let's hurt them. You couldn't say that. It was the one unacceptable thing, and for very good reason. You cannot maintain a multiracial democracy unless people of every color have exactly the same.
But he didn't even say, like, white people. He said MAGA people, like conservative people. So he's talking about he's talking about like whiteness as a white fragility, but he literally started off with like MAGA people. Unless you you know, unless you jump the gun and go, oh, when you mean MAGA people, you mean all white people, then, you know, that's a bit of a self-report, I guess. But I don't think the Trump supporters represent, you know, every white person. It's kind of stupid.
Same rights and responsibilities.
If we could define what CRT is, that'd help a lot with the problem. Okay, but that's the reason why it is undefinable is also because it's purposely undefinable, as the guy who, like, is the main reason why we talk about CRT all the fucking time from the Manhattan Institute openly admitted, which is like everything and anything is CRT. That's the point. That's the issue. It's not like the actual legal analysis from a racial framework in our in our criminal justice system. It's just that it's just any time like systemic racism is mentioned, then it's CRT. That's the whole point. It's just something to be something to just like use as a catch-all term.
Under the law and are considered of precisely.
He was talking about white guy. Okay, here, let's run this again. I gotta go pee, but
You know, the maggots.
people are getting upset, but like he's starting it off by talking about the white fragility of MAGA people.
I'm sorry, the MAGA, in this, you know, political moment. And we have stood by to see mediocre, mealy-mouthed, snowflake white men who are incapable of taking critique.
Like he's literally talking about MAGA people and their white fragility. Do you not understand that? He's not saying all white people are this way. I mean, there's white people on the fucking thing that he's talking to, on the panel that he's talking to,
who are willing to dole out infamous repudiations of the humanity of the other, and yet they...
He's just talking about Tucker Carlson. I say this all the time, by the way. When people are criticizing white fragility, there is no reason to take ownership of that. If it does not pertain to you, just like I, as a white passing or white person, never feel as though like white fragility criticisms extend to someone like myself, because I don't feel it. Like, so you are taking on that criticism on your own and saying, oh no, actually he's talking about me. And then unironically, you know, feeding into the meme of white fragility by being overly fragile about something that is not even about you. Okay?
Call us snowflakes, and they are the biggest flakes of snow to hit the earth. They are incapable of criticism. They are incapable of tolerating difference. They're scared of, oh my God, critical race theory is going to kill your mother. And they don't even know. They're not critical. They have no race, and they don't understand theory.
That's it. Like, you're engaging in a self-report when you're like, oh, he's talking about me and now I'm upset. Okay? He's not talking about you, dude. And by the way, people do that sometimes and I get fucking mad. When people are like, no, actually, as a white person, like as a white, you are also a part of this. And you as a white have no say in this circumstance. Like in this conversation, like see yourself out of it. Then it's like, no, I will not see myself out of it. Ridiculous. How many times have I fucking criticized this shit?
White men, they're the problem. You hear that so often that you don't pause to consider what a change this is. It used to be only a few years ago that the one thing you couldn't do in America was attack people in public on the basis of their race. I don't like that group because of their skin color. Let's hurt them. You couldn't say that. It was the one unacceptable
Well, that's interesting because he didn't say that, but
thing,
okay.
and for very good reason.
But of course, to someone with to someone with privilege, equality feels like oppression, right? Famous critical race theorist MLK said that. But he's of course good, but because he said he has a dream that white people and black people should not be judged by the color of their skin, but the content of their character. So he said that. So let's avoid everything else that he said. We literally did that after 9/11. What? Okay. So famously assassinated by the FBI, CRT. What I find to be rather strange about this argument itself is actually fuck it. I just gotta go pee. I can't hold it in anymore. I'll be back in a second.
You cannot maintain a multiracial democracy unless people of every color have exactly the same rights and responsibilities under the law and are considered of precisely the same moral value under God. You have to have that. That's the most basic prerequisite for a multiracial democracy. All lives have to matter, or it cannot work. It's pretty clear that our leadership class, for whatever reason, doesn't want it to work. Obviously, they don't. Look at what they're doing. When you hear people ascribe blood guilt to a specific racial group, when you hear them talk about the sin of whiteness, what you're watching is the death of our future as a country. We can't live in a nation of warring tribes. We know very well what that looks like because it's the history of the world. It's miserable and vicious and bloody. We can't allow that. Most Americans of all colors on some level understand this. They don't always have the words to articulate it, but they know it. When their kids come home from school with assignments to suggest that all races are not in fact equal, that some races are guilty and some are innocent, that some groups are oppressors inherently and others are inherently oppressed. In the universities, this is called critical race theory. So that's the term that most people go with. Critical race theory. That's what we so often debate on television. That's the clip we just showed you. But critical race theory is an inaccurate way to describe what's happening. Like so much academic jargon, the phrase critical race theory doesn't mean anything.
Okay, what I was going to say before I went to pee was the irony is what Tucker Carlson is doing here when he bastardizes what Michael Eric Dyson is saying is exactly at the heart of the when you have privilege, equality feels like oppression. Because if he turned around and said you could never separate people on the virtue of race, and then actually directly analogized what Michael Eric Dyson was saying. He had to turn around and be like, what Michael Eric Dyson is saying is just like saying you should kill all black people. That's not what he said. So if you consider the mere mention of white fragility to be akin to saying kill all black people, then you're literally proving his fucking point about white fragility. That was what I was going to say. Sorry. Okay? That's it. That's the fucking irony there.
And for very good reason. You cannot maintain a multiracial democracy unless people of every color have exactly the same rights and responsibilities under the law and are considered of precisely the same moral value under God. You have to have that. That's the most basic prerequisite for a multiracial democracy. All lives have to matter, or it cannot work. It's pretty clear that our leadership class, for whatever reason, doesn't want it to work. Obviously, they don't. Look at what they're doing. When you hear people ascribe blood guilt to a specific racial group, when you hear them talk about the sin of whiteness, what you're watching is the death of our future as a country. We can't live in a nation of warring tribes. We know very well what that looks like because it's the history of the world. It's miserable and vicious and bloody. We can't allow that. Most Americans of all colors on some level understand this. They don't always have the words to articulate it, but they know it. When their kids come home from school with assignments to suggest that all races are not in fact equal, that some races are guilty and some are innocent, that some groups are oppressors inherently and others are inherently oppressed. In the universities, this is called critical race theory. So that's the term that...
Okay, I get so upset about this this rhetoric. Are there people who fucking unironically believe that? Sure, there are. But it's not the fucking dominant position, okay? And it's certainly not what people are fucking teaching, and it's not even what critical race theory is supposed to be. He's 100% correct, and chat doesn't like hearing truths get rolled. What? What are the truths? That white people are inherently oppressive? Is that what you're saying? Dumbass.
That most people go with. Critical race theory. That's what we so often debate on television. That's the clip we just showed you.
The problem is, Tucker plays fast and loose with historically and inherently, as the chatter also pointed out. No one is saying white people are genetically dominant or inherently dominant and have to be dominant. And that's why they're doing racist things. Okay? They're saying historically white people have dominated. And the impact of that, which, by the way, everyone will agree to that throughout history. Only select few, like Tucker Carlson, will turn around and act like that's not fucking true. Okay? There's nothing inherent about it. There's nothing genetic about that. And it can change. And the first step towards changing that, especially because that system of domination is so pervasive that it still has a lasting impact on contemporary existence. But changing that system comes from learning about the history so that everyone can at least recognize it. Okay?
But critical race theory is an inaccurate way to describe what's happening. Like so much academic jargon, the phrase critical race theory doesn't mean anything. It obscures rather than illuminates. It is designed that way. It is designed to confuse you. What's happening in our schools and our military and our government is both simpler and easier to recognize than that. It's not critical race theory. It's racism. Not neo-racism or reverse racism. Those are meaningless terms. It is race hate. It is peddled by the people in charge in the hope that it will make them more...
Bro, this is so fucking stupid. Like, an analysis of... A critical analysis from a racial point of view and racial oppression throughout history is not creating racism. It is literally to stop more racist fucking people from existing. Okay? Like, if adequately representing history makes you feel like is going to breed more fucking resentment towards white people, then now I understand why you don't want people to adequately understand history. Because you don't want people to recognize what white people have done. But the reality is, like, it's not supposed to create resentment. What it's supposed to do is create less resentment from white people towards black people so that we can understand our shared history and conflict and struggle throughout time so that we can make the future better. But of course, the reason why Tucker Carlson does not want people to be informed about America's racist history or the world's racist history is because he wants to act like it no longer is important, that was in the past, and don't learn too much about it lest you start feeling differently about the reason why black people are still subjected to the conditions that they're subjected to. Because it would shatter the worldview of so many people.
More powerful. That's all it is. We haven't said that often enough or clearly enough. And because we haven't, because we've been tied up in some pointless debate about a concept that nobody can actually define, the race hate, and that's what it is, has oozed from the universities and it has infected the entire country, including at the very highest levels. Mark Milley is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He didn't get that job because he's brilliant or because he's brave or because the people who know him respect him. He is not, and they definitely don't. Milley got the job because he is obsequious. He knows who to suck up to, and he's more than happy to do it. Feed him a script, and he will read it. Here's Milley yesterday, the man in charge of this nation's weapons, explaining that he's working to understand a concept called white rage.
I do think it's important, actually, for those of us in uniform to be open-minded and be widely read. And the United States Military Academy is a university. And it is important that we train and we understand. And I want to understand white rage, and I'm white, and I want to understand it. So what is it that caused thousands of people to assault this building and try to overturn the Constitution of the United States of America? What caused that? I want to find that out. I want to maintain an open mind here, and I do want to analyze it. It's important that we understand.
Kind of funny, like, how quickly Tucker shits on veterans and the military. Like, remember Tammy Duckworth, like, got absolutely, like, Tucker Carlson literally straight up said, like, her disability was faked, pretty much, or like that she was incapable. He does this shit all the time. He's able to do that. He's able to do that because he's a conservative. Conservatives love the military, you know?
Understand that because our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Guardians, they come from the American people. So it is important that the leaders now and in the future do understand it.
Hard to believe that man wears a uniform. He's that unimpressive. Notice he never defined white rage, and we should know what it is. What is white rage? Well, like drapetomania, it's one of those diseases that only affect people with certain melanin levels. It's a race-specific.
It's literally not, dude. It's not a fucking race realist medical condition. Why the fuck is Tucker Carlson making it seem like people are treating white rage as though it's like anything beyond a social term created by those who like are studying social sciences? Oh my fucking God. Unironically, Tucker needs some critical race theory, I guess, to understand. If I, a brown lefty Muslim immigrant, had opened my MSNBC show last Sunday by calling America's top general a pig and stupid, saying he wasn't fit to wear the uniform, comparing America to Rwanda, the right would be demanding I be fired and calling me a traitor. But Tucker, yeah, that's true. I mean, it's 100% true.
Specific illness. That's what Mark Milley has learned from reading about it. That's why he's making his soldiers read about it too. They need to know. Watch.
I've read Mao Zedong. I've read Karl Marx. I've read Lenin. That doesn't make me a communist. So what is wrong with understanding, having some situational understanding about the country for which we are here to defend? And I personally find it offensive that we are accusing the United States military, our general officers, our commissioned, non-commissioned officers, of being, quote, woke.
He's not just a pig, he's stupid. So Mark Milley reads Mao to understand Maoism. He reads communist to understand communism. But it's interesting that he doesn't read white supremacists to understand white supremacy. Why not go to the source? Well, because Mark Milley would be fired instantly if he read those books. And getting fired is the one thing he doesn't want.
Yo. For the record, this is why I think it's so fucking stupid whenever centrists and neoliberals liken communism as an economic organization or Marxism as an economic theory to Nazism and fascism, which is built upon racial boundaries, racial resentment. And there is a completely separate designation for it, considering that it's not grounded within dialectical materialism at all. This is why Tucker Carlson can get away with saying such fucking laughable and idiotic things. Tucker Carlson hilariously is saying, like, you know, you'd get fired if you read Mein Kampf. You know, maybe you should read Mein Kampf. Cool. Okay.
So he reads about white rage as if it's totally real. It's a medical condition. And by the way, since it's a medical condition, at what age can you catch white rage, by the way? Most of us assume
It's not. No one has said that white rage is a medical condition. Absolutely zero people are saying that white rage is a medical condition except for Tucker Carlson. And now the fucking morons that listen to Tucker Carlson. White rage is not a medical condition. No one has said this. But the reason why Tucker Carlson has to say this over and over again is because he's building a fucking faulty premise here and making a faulty analogy. Okay? Tucker Carlson might have a medical condition, but I don't think it's white rage as a medical condition. He certainly is demonstrating some white fragility and white rage, though.
that our 2-year-olds were just teething. Now we know it's their whiteness that's making them so angry. Thanks, Mark Milley. We appreciate your contribution to our generation's scientific racism. By the way, have you read anything recently about winning wars? Apparently not. We could go on and on and on. Pundit after senator, after professor, after general.
I love that, like, by the way, he's not even wrong about that. So it's kind of funny that conservatives now unironically keep saying that, like, America's military keeps losing wars. It's fucking true. But also, like, it's kind of funny that, like, Matt Gaetz said this exact same thing, too. Like, he was like, maybe that's why. Maybe because they're reading critical race theory that our fucking military keeps losing wars, bro. It's like, I mean, they're not wrong, but I also find it really weird that these, like, esteemed patriots keep fucking saying, like, the military's full of L nerds. That's great. I mean, welcome. Welcome to the resistance, Tucker Carlson.
Each one of them spewing race hate, whiteness, white rage, dressed up as some new academic theory. We certainly have the tape. We'll spare you because you've seen it. It's everywhere. The question is, and this is the question that we should be meditating on day in and day out, is how do we get out of this vortex, this cycle, before it's too late? How do we save this country before we...
By the way, the American military loses wars on purpose. Okay? It's because it's significantly more profitable that way. They don't give a fuck how many people die in the process, as long as the military-industrial complex is, you know, getting their gears oiled and making more money. So in that sense, they are winning from a capitalist point of view. Ironically, Tucker would know more about this if he read Lenin. But I guess reading Lenin doesn't stop you from being an imperialist warmonger, as General Milley and his existence also points out. So, you know, just remember that, theory nerds.
We become Rwanda. What should we be teaching our children so that before it's too late? How do we save this country before we become Rwanda?
Rwanda is Rwanda, not because of, like, foreign policy of other nations, imperialism, anything like that, but because they read too much critical race theory.
What should we be teaching our children so they can live in the country that you want to live in? A country full of many different kinds of people, many different, but who actually like each other, who are happy to work together, who are united ultimately by the core fact, which is they're all Americans. That is the question.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey.
I love this, dude. What an incredible, insightful analysis from Tucker Carlson. It's great. There's a lot of stuff here I'm not going to, you know, go through, but because we've already done so much. This guy's the biggest piece of shit, Tucker Carlson, that is. Oh, yeah. Nobody cool likes Tucker Carlson.
Your response when you see children wearing masks as they play should be no different from your response to seeing someone beat a kid in Walmart.
Call the police immediately.
What the fuck is this?
Nobody cool likes Tucker Carlson. Nobody cool likes Tucker Carlson. Nobody cool likes Tucker Carlson. If you like Tucker Carlson, then you're not cool. Cause nobody cool likes Tucker Carlson. Only a fool would like Tucker Carlson. Nobody cool likes Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson is the worst. He's a maniac, sociopath, white supremacist, fear-generating mouth with an emphasis on lies and misinformation. With that infuriating look on his face, the court of law accepted an argument that no reasonable person would take him seriously. that's technically true, people do. And that's why I'm like, shut the hell up, Tucker Carlson, please go away. Tucker Carlson, nobody who's even a little bit cool would say they don't think you're a total tool. Nobody cool likes Tucker Carlson. Nobody cool likes Tucker Carlson. Nobody cool likes Tucker Carlson. Tucker, you're the worst.
I mean, it's true. It's a little bit. It's like Walmart Bo Burnham a little bit, but hey, this would convert kids in the pipeline. What? Sounds pretty good too. Good message. I'll allow it.